Welcome to Blamestorming. Blamestorming. In a post-truth world, there's plenty of blame to go around. Plenty of blame to go around. Plenty of blame to go around. Join Dave Cyrus and Marissa Smith as they blamestorm about today's hot topics.
Hey guys, welcome to Blamestorming. I'm Marissa Smith. Dave Cyrus is actually not here today, you guys. He is out at Sundance. But I'm here. I'm doing the Blame Storm with AJ Mattioli.
Hello, everybody.
So, AJ, how has your week been? How have you been? Like, you haven't been on the show for a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute. 2019 has been a shitstorm.
Yeah.
So 2019's been a little bit rough. But things are starting to look up. Gigs are starting to come in. Filmmaking's. That's what I do. I'm a filmmaker, and December and January are just dead. As far as work goes, so you get bored, and so luckily things are picking up. So 2019 kind of hit me a little bit hard for a multitude of reasons, but things are looking up now, and I'm happy about that. And
yeah,
I'm happy to be on the podcast and feel like things are moving, so that's always good,
No,
yeah.
totally. And you're working on a film now that you have a Kickstarter for, right?
Yeah, it's called Guys at Parties Like It, and it's actually a horror film based on inspired by the Me Too movement.
Okay.
But we make sure that karma actually plays a big part in it, because it's a horror movie. So we decided to the violence will not be shown will only be implied towards the women, but the violence towards the men will be shown. So all the people that you want to get hurt, and you get to watch.
Okay.
So
how many dicks get chopped off in this movie?
Well, they don't get chopped off, but things do happen. They do get detached in a certain way. So it's called Guys at Parties Like It, and it's for me it's brilliant. I think being able to, with all my movies, as you know, they're kind of aligned with some sort of charity, and being able to just say this is a horror movie and it's going to women who are abused. We're actually going to go towards we haven't picked out the charity yet because we're still in our kickstarting phase, so
right.
There's nothing to give yet, clearly.
Yeah.
But we're going to look for one that's a little bit smaller. We tend to automatically go with the standards that we know off the top of our heads, which they need money too.
Right.
But there's a lot of smaller charities that really have feet on the ground,
grassroots.
Grassroots kind of stuff. So we're going to try to align with that a little bit and figure out a charity. So if you guys are listening, watching, feel free to, email Marissa or myself via, social media and give us a couple of suggestions.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah. And it's just, it's something that, it's to me, it's a double bonus. I get people to watch my movies, and you get to watch a good movie, and then also know that some of that money is going to, a charity, which is great.
Yeah, and I feel like anytime you can align a project that you're doing with a charity, it just makes it that much better. Years and years ago, I used to be a hiring manager for a retail store, a pretty big retail store or whatever. And I used to reach out to shelters for battered women that were trying to hide from their spouses, so they couldn't have a real address and stuff like that. So just with using their shelter address, because it's hard when you can't use a real address to even apply for a job. And these are women with children that they literally just need one step in the right direction to get their life, and it was just so
Be
great.
Able to have a place to get mail.
Yeah,
that is a people don't realize that literally just that is necessary to move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are just oh, well, you can't use a PO address for a job application, which is so why?
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 Yeah.
Like, what does that have anything to do with
Well,
anything?
now you can't even use it to vote, so...
Like, so it's just kind of like... But just to be able to like help some of these women get employment so that they can get an apartment, so that they can have a real address and move on with their lives, even if they didn't stay with the company.
I mean, even I know personally how expensive it is to get to get your name changed. So if these people are these women are hiding from these people are hiding from their abusers, they're gonna need a name change. That's not cheap. They don't make it. The government doesn't make it easy to do those things. I mean, there's obvious costs that are necessary that go into it. People are working to do that, but it is overpriced like everything else and unnecessarily overpriced. So that alone, like for one person, can put them, into lots of debt. I mean, for me, everyone in my life calls me AJ, but like, to go and get all that stuff changed, like it's expensive. Like it's expensive. It's long. It's a very long process, and even then, I have friends that 5 years down the line have changed their names and will still get mail to their old name.
Right.
So it's like it's not just like go and leave. When people are like just leave him and get yourself a job, and it's not
that
easy.
simple.
It's not that easy. Like if women could do that, most of them probably would.
Yeah. No, but like, definitely I think that anytime you can align yourself with any sort of charity in any way, that like it's like a small effort on your part, but like it makes such a difference on the other end for someone else.
And the thing is, like, when it comes to making money, like for me, I don't understand what people would like do with all their money. Like I'm like, it must be nice to be rich, but like I genuinely don't understand. So for me to if I'm getting a small check, then it's not going to change my life anyway. So what is a percentage of that going to a charity going to affect me in the long run? It's not.
Right.
And then if I make
I like all the money, so just send me all the money.
Yeah. But like if I make a movie and it does make it big and it does make a lot of money, then I would automatically want to share the wealth. So being able to just say up front, like, when and if this movie makes it, guys at parties like it is going to donate this much money per quarter. Each time a check comes in, you get that much.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. So now you've recently had some press on one of your films.
Yeah. Amazon right now is they started gutting indie films. So essentially they'll keep their DVDs on Amazon, but not the streaming. It started off with very small LGBT films like mine, which was Words. And when that got pulled down, they weren't giving exact answers. So, like, all of a sudden, we got an email, the distribution company got an email stating, we've pulled this title, it's no longer on streaming, and obviously we wrote back and like, what is going on? And each answer was nonsense. One was the viewers weren't liking it, and although we only have 32 reviews on Amazon.com, they're all 5-star reviews that like, not like from friends, like good movie, like literally like people wrote paragraphs worth of like why this movie is important and it should be played in schools and things like that. So the idea that like people weren't liking it is not true. And as we all know, if people don't like something, they'll
say it.
They will,
especially
say it.
Online. It's just like
it's like if you want to review something, like people, I remember being a manager at Blockbuster, and
I was too.
Oh my god! And one of the things they said that was like, if you're a good worker, like we probably won't hear about you, but if you're a bad worker, people will call. So people are more likely to complain. So the fact that I had not one negative review, and I'm a little bit obsessed, so like I check these things daily. So
right.
So it's not like there was a very like terrible review with curses in it that got pulled down right away. Like, I see it. I'm looking at it every day.
Right.
So we went back with that. And then it, so they kept on writing back. It was about the content, and when you talk about the content of something,
subjective.
It's subjective, and this film Words isn't even my most offensive film on Amazon. And that was kind of the first thing that was like kind of shocking. Like my movie Kill a Unicorn, like when and if that goes onto Amazon, like if that gets pulled for content, like people are getting murdered in sex clubs through poisoned enemas. Like, I mean, I get it. It would be a bummer, but we wouldn't be like, you know.
You're like, you got me.
Yeah, like, all right. We've already been told by that distribution company, like, if Showtime picks it up, it's going to be a 2 a.m. slot. Like, we know this. I mean, it's a great movie, but it's a 2 a.m. slot movie. So, like, all the things they were writing weren't matching up, and then the fans got involved. And when the fans got involved, it kind of blew up a lot bigger than I expected. A lot of teachers and parents who I've never met, who have like just friended me on Facebook and blah, 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 have been writing and calling and really going back and forth with Amazon, and just Amazon's refusing to give us
an answer. Yeah, because I've actually emailed myself. It was my first Amazon Prime credit, because I'm also in Words.
Yes.
And they literally they said, oh, well, we understand you want to know more about this. And I'm like, well, it just kind of feels like with the atmosphere of the administration that you're trying to silence voices of LGBTQ people. And here is an article that kind of surmises as much. And then the very next email was, we are not discussing this anymore.
Yeah, it was. And that's what they were getting aggressive, which was kind of crazy. Like, even with the distribution company who has hundreds of movies on Amazon, was just like, what is going on? They wrote back, like, it's not even up for review. Like, they're not even willing to reassess and watch the movie. Like, if it's a matter of the amount of people watching it, well, then just say that. That I can accept. Like, because I don't know. For me, I think a lot of people are watching it, but I don't know what Amazon.com's version of
what
a lot
their
of people
average
watching
is.
it.
Yeah.
So like, if even if they lie to me and tell me that, like,
do they give you streaming statistics?
They do, but like they give it based on the film, so like I can only compare it to the other films that I have.
Okay.
But based on just the amount of people that kind of blew up about it, and
people have to be watching it.
People have to be watching it. Like, it's, I had someone write me, so the article was written by Gaystar News, was the first one that was written about it, and people were writing me and finding me through my website, just being like, hey, I watched this, I made my high school senior class watch this, or, I had a couple of people like, I have no idea how to talk to my kids, who's non-gender conforming, and this movie really helped.
Right.
Which
is basically kind of why you did it.
Yeah, which is exactly why I did it, to give people, like, and that's the thing, like, again, content-wise, it is probably the most wholesome thing I've made. I think we say the word faggot twice in it. I think
it wasn't me.
It wasn't. And I think maybe I think no, not Adam Sank. I think Jacqueline Dupree says fuck, and it's like, oh, I shouldn't say that. Like, there's really nothing kind of crazy. Like, when it's all about identity, and it's not like I was like asking, some gay boys like, hey, how do I identify? And they were like, oh, I'm a sub, I'm a top. Like, it wasn't answers like that. It was like, I identify as a cis gay man. I identify as a gender non-conforming person. And answers of that sort. So, like, even people's answers were very, genuine and sweet and nice. And it was, we filmed it before Trump, so people were not so
as
angry.
upset. Yeah.
It would have been a much different movie.
It would have been. Like, you're really lucky that you got it in the can before Trump, because I feel like there would have been a lot more anger. Like, and like, I know that, like, I'm always angry. Like, I feel like I'm always angry.
I wake up and worry.
And it's just like, and I can't even really imagine, because like I'm like a cisgender heterosexual woman, but a woman of color. I'm a black woman, so like I always have like some degree of worry.
Yeah.
But like I can't imagine what your community has is worry, because it's like, and especially now that he's trying to roll back so many rights for LGBTQ people, and especially LGBT, well, more trans people with the military. Like, and the thing that I get so incensed about it, because, and I also get mad that I don't understand why more people aren't mad about it, because this isn't just about trans people. This is a test.
Yeah.
This is like they're trying to test, and they figure like, oh, people don't care about transgendered people, but like they are trying to test what they can get away with within the law. And before we all know, it's all civil rights are going to be overturned.
Well, what was it just in, I want to say South Carolina? They just put up like, you know, it's crazy that, like, I'm very used to hearing that, like, oh, this state took away this gay right, and this state took away this, and, like, oh, you're not allowed to adopt, and, like, I'm always like, okay, well, what state am I in? Can I, like, even, like, say hello to a kid? And, like,
Right.
you know, and then you know, but when you hear something that's added to that, it's kind of crazy. So I think it was South Carolina recently made it, I don't know if it's been passed, but I know they were trying to make it so LGBTQ people can't adopt, and neither can Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
So it is one of those, like, you know, it you know, that old saying, I don't know.
Where's Roseanne Barr talking about that?
Yeah, really. Open your white trash.
I mean, she's always about everything is so anti-Semitic, but like here, a state is saying Jewish people can't adopt children.
Yeah.
Well, get off your macadamia nut farm and go talk about this.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's crazy. So, like, once you start, you know, I'm hoping that when people start seeing that things are being added to who are being denied rights, that they, you know, you hope people are smart enough to realize, like, okay, well, they came for the Jewish people, and now they're gonna come for, you know, the Muslims, and then after they come for the Muslims, then it'll be like only Catholic people allowed, or Christian people allowed to adopt.
Eventually, they'll even go for the Catholics, because, I mean, we've literally only had one Catholic president, and you know what happened to him.
Yeah, I always forget that. My mom always, like, tries, because my parents are Catholic, and she's always like, it's not Catholics, it's the Christians. I'm like, all right, but, like, it's all of you.
No, there's different flavors of Christians.
I'm like, you're all terrible.
No, I mean, they're all terrible to a certain degree, and Catholics are terrible in their own right. But like, I went to Catholic school from like pre-K to 12th grade.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. So like, yeah, Catholics are kind of terrible in their own right, but it's like these like fundamentalist, like evangelical, like Christian right wing. Like they're literally like the Christian ISIS. Like,
it's so bizarre. I'm like, what Bible? I mean, okay, no, maybe they did read the Bible. It's pretty violent, actually.
I don't
it's
get
hard
it.
when people are like, well, Jesus taught us, like, you know, to be nice to each other. I'm like, yeah, but there's other stories in the Bible that are not so great.
Right, but like, if that's where you're going, if you're gonna try to model yourself after the golden rule, right, then like none of this shit should be happening.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and then that's where I'm just kind of like, religion is bullshit, because like if you're gonna say that you should treat others the way that you want to be treated, then you shouldn't be doing any of this. And if you're gonna say that we are all in the form of God, that like God created us all, then we're all God's creatures, and we're all perfect in the eyes of the Lord.
In high school, I wanted my senior quote to be, if God made us all in his image, why'd I have to be the big toe? I don't. So stupid. I've always been so stupid. No, but I definitely agree. I think it's crazy how you know, and you see it as a person of color, like you see how people can just hate and not have, you know, real justifiable reasons. You know,
Right.
You know, it's so bizarre. I mean, like you were saying, like, you know, you don't know what it would be like to kind of live as a trans person, but or like an LGBT person where rights are getting taken away. But at the same point, like, you're a person of color, like you're just having a different shitty experience.
Yeah. It's like my shitty experience is centuries. Like, you know,
Yeah, like,
it's
you're
like
just
I've got
kinda,
the
like,
ancestors of shit like rolling off my back, being like, girl, like you're pissed off about this. It's just like, yeah, I know. I have allergies. I would not have survived in a field. I get it. Like, it's like I would
Fair.
not have been. I would have been useless picking anything. I was just gonna be sneezing all over everything. Like,
yeah, no, that's fair. Happy
Yeah.
that you were born nowadays.
yeah, I still sneeze all over everything, but you know, at least I can have tissues.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. No, I think you know, I mean, I think sometimes you know, as a trans man, as a white trans man, I kind of forget how insanely violent the community is. Also, being a white trans man in living in you know, Bushwick, Brooklyn, New York, you know, is definitely a much different experience as well than other trans people. But I was recently on this panel over at Queens College, talking about what's happening with the trans community, and how we feel on a political level we can kind of change that. Um, and kind of within that, I was talking to you know, we're kind of going around the circle talking, and this woman of color who, God, if she was 28, you know, she was old, and she was like, every day, you know, every day that I don't get killed, I consider lucky. And it's like crazy to think she is only like, I think 2 years, I think she said, away from being the national average of how old trans women of color live.
Right.
Which is just so like crazy to think that, like, yeah, like we all in the community, and you know, feel like nervous when we go outside, and you know, we can definitely have that fear, but the idea that, like, statistically, your survival is you living is literally just statistically, uh like it's just it's kicking statistics in the face. It's like saying, like,
Right.
wow, like I am gonna survive, and it's, you know, an act of resistance just to leave the house knowing that, like, you can be killed because your time has literally been up on the average.
Right.
And that's, I can't imagine living with that reality. Like, that's intense. I don't know how I would be able to deal with that.
And that's like a thing that I think is, you know, and granted, I'm not the most well versed in the statistics of it, but I feel like trans women of color, particularly trans black women, seem to be murdered at a higher rate
Yes.
than
Yes.
other trans women or other
Yes.
trans people. And I don't understand the hows or the why behind it.
Well, essentially, so people of color in the LGBT community, you know, historically have a harder time with the parental units, and get kicked out a lot earlier. Being trans, it's very hard to get employment.
Right.
So you're kicked out of your house. It's hard to get employment. Both being trans and as a person of color, you know, as much as we would all like to think that everyone gets equal opportunity, but affirmative action is there for a reason. You know, so, you know, we don't have so trans women of color, like, really have a hard time getting jobs. So they have a lot of them turn to survival sex. And survival sex is essentially being an escort, and
The sex work
a
industry.
sex worker in the
Right.
sex working industry. So a lot of them are murdered through that, and left, you know, left in you know, alleyways and dumpsters, and disgusting things like that, and treated, you know, less than. And there's also the you know, the amount of trans women of color who, when there's a bigger chance of getting hurt if you're with someone and they find out that you haven't had bottom surgery yet, you know, or that you were, you know, quote unquote, a man prior to them dating you. It leads to violence a lot. Whereas, you know, like everything in you know, the white community, with privilege comes less violence. You know,
Right.
and that's just a reality of that. So it's mostly, you know, toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
which is murdering them.
Which is
on
everybody's
dates.
problem.
Yeah, which is everyone's problem.
Yeah.
And that attributes a lot to it.
Yeah. It's strange because I recently read an article and I can't remember the guy's name, but he was like a pretty big Democrat in California. And he's a gay man, and he is a white cisgendered homosexual man, but his kink was turning like black younger sex worker males onto drugs. And so
Okay.
he had one sex worker die in 2018, and then a couple of weeks ago the second sex worker died.
Right.
You heard about this, right?
I heard about it, but I never found out why was there two different young black men.
This is his kink. Yeah. So like his kink would be like, he would hire a younger black male sex worker, and then like, if they allowed him to shoot him up with mystery drugs, he'd pay them double. And so, they need money. And they would allow him to do it. And he was like getting them strung out on crystal meth and heroin and everything. And so like the first one, I believe that is known, because if this is his behavior, he's done this before, died, I believe, during the summer of maybe 2017. And then the second man died a few weeks ago to a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
But he's like a huge donor in the Democratic Party. He's like, pictures with him and Hillary, and like, he's just like was like a mover and shaker in like California, like Democratic Party, and he is a predator, and the first time that someone OD'd there, they just kind of like, oh well, he said that they came over to his house already on drugs and OD'd there, which is like, if you're ODing, are you traveling to somebody's house?
It's
like, something like, oh man, I took a hot shot. Let me go to Ted's. Like,
let me hop on the subway real quick.
It's like, let me get this Uber. No, don't go to the hospital. Ted knows what to do. Yeah. He's got my favorite soup. Like, it's like, what are you doing? Like, no.
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous. Like, he could have been on drugs, but he definitely wasn't ODing.
Right.
Like, he didn't knock on the door ODing. Yeah, that's... And I'm sure if this guy is like, a wealthy guy, there's doormen. If it's an apartment building, there's doormen. Like, that would have been like, this dude is slimered, like...
It's like, he's foaming at the mouth. I don't think you need to come in, sir.
Like, you clearly don't need to meet anybody in this building.
Yeah. And then the second guy, he had written in his journal about how this older white guy was into like shooting them up with like mystery drugs, and that this guy had gotten him hooked on crystal meth, and that he like kind of fucked up his whole life, and he has other friends that are also escorts that he was like shooting up and things like that. So like it was all in his journal, and they're still like questioning whether or not this guy is at fault for his death. And it's just like, and I like, not to, I guess I'm gonna like, I'm gonna have some Trump bitterness right now, but like, yes, Cosby did something, but Cosby never OD'd anybody. Like, like,
is that where we're at now?
Like, this is where I'm at right now. Right now, I'm just like, all right, this guy just killed 2 people, like literally killed them. Yeah, Cosby gave you something like a lewd. It's like, okay, but you woke up and your keister was sore. Like, I don't understand. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's always someone that's got it worse. Yeah, definitely.
It's just like, why does my ass hurt?
But I mean,
why am I dead? Like, there's 2 different things. Like,
well, and I think that, like, Yeah, like if you, I didn't know what story you were gonna tell, and I was wondering if you were gonna go with like some Democrat that like got caught like having a kink that he likes to like pee on someone, and I think it's like ridiculous that like these, because that just like happened to somebody else where like this person, I don't remember who it was, but this person got caught, his kink is like golden showers, and listen, like it's not for me,
Right.
like, but like if that's the worst thing you're doing if you're a government worker and that's the worst you're doing, like.
And
I'm cool.
As
I'm
long as this
cool.
person consented to getting pissed
That's
on.
That's it. Like you're not giving illegal drugs to someone. You're not,
trying to murder them.
Trying to murder them. You're not, if that's the least, if that's the worst you're gonna do, I'd rather you piss on people than.
And they're of age. Not like R. Kelly.
Yeah. I don't know.
That annoys me so much.
I don't know why it took so long. Why did it take a documentary? Like, what is?
Because all of his victims were black women.
Yeah, fair.
Like, if he was doing this to 12 and 14-year-old white girls, he would have been in jail like 30 years ago.
Like, I'm really, definitely. And, like, I'm, like, really bad with, like, I don't drive, and I really don't listen to music, unless I'm, like, out,
Right.
At the club, so, like, when that documentary came out, I was like, that guy's still making music? Like, I thought he was canceled, like, a decade ago. I'm like, didn't we know this, like, a decade ago? I was like, what? And then I'm always, like, shocked whenever I see Chris Brown's face. I'm like, this motherfucker's still making music? Like, and then I'm like, where are the, like, not to be, like, violence, blah, blah, but I'm also like, if Chris Brown was walking around and that happened to me, like, or, like, my sister, like, legs would be broken. Like, he would be rapping from a fucking wheelchair. Like, I don't,
it's like
one thing the cops didn't get involved, case got dropped, whatever, but, like, case got dropped, not from family court. Like, crazy. Yeah, that R. Kelly thing was.
It's
like, I didn't even watch the documentary because I was like, yeah, he's been pissing on 12-year-olds
for like 10 years. Yeah. Like I didn't watch the documentary. I didn't. It's just kind of like, to me, it's just kind of too upsetting because, and I feel like this Me Too movement is necessary and it needs to happen. However, I feel like everyone is getting painted with the same brush.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you're a 30-year-old woman and you slept with some guy so that you could get a movie role, and then 20 years later you're going to say, oh, like, this guy had power over me, I'm going to look at you in a different way than I'm going to look at any 12-year-old ever that is having sex with a grown-ass man.
Of course. And I think that goes, even if you want to go back to, what government workers do that are bad. Like, for me, it's like I'd much rather have, like, was Clinton, Bill Clinton, like, squeaky clean? Absolutely not. But you know what? He was a hell of a lot cleaner than this piece of shit.
Right.
So I think, like, when people, like, election time, like, they're, my father, who I finally got to vote, and he was like, I'm not going to vote. I'm going to get called for jury duty. And I was like, that's a myth. And then literally got called for jury duty. So, anyway, but his thing was always like, they're all pieces of shit. They're all going to take my money, and the middle class is always going to get screwed. True. But there's levels of pieces of shit.
Right.
So I think, it goes the same thing with this, sexual assault. Like, there was an article that was, it was a picture of Louis C.K. next to Aziz Ansari, and I was like,
they're not the same.
Like, how, when it was an article written about, like, sexual misconduct in comedy. There's so much sexual misconduct in comedy.
Yes.
And the idea that these two men both did the same thing is not true. Are they both kind of scummy things to do? Yeah, like, certainly, but, like, one is
putting your fingers in a girl's mouth and jerking off in front of her are two different things entirely.
Yeah, like, exactly. Like, there's a big difference between, a date rape song and, then actually, like, going out and doing it. So I think it's like, what is the actions and what are the words that are happening?
Right.
And I think Aziz was a lot more of the words that were happening, with coercion and such. And again, it was no, I'm not condoning any of this. I think that you can just be a good fucking guy. It's not that hard. But I think like the comparison of like those two comedians was ridiculous.
The Aziz thing in particular, and this is like an unpopular opinion, and I realize that, and I'm fine with it. But I think that it has a lot to do with that woman just needed to grow a pair. Like, do you know how many guys I've gone out on a date with that's like, come back to my place? Nah, I'm going home. If you want to go have a drink somewhere, that's fine. I'm going home. Like, or you get to his place and, so I'm just not feeling, something, like maybe next time. Like, but everything was just, well, he had power over me. It's like, you're not a comic. You're a photographer.
True. Yeah.
You're not like writing a screenplay. You're not doing anything that his particular position in life is going to advance you.
Yeah.
So what power does he have over you? And I'll tell you right now, like, like I've dealt with guys that are famous and asked me to come up, something? No.
Yeah,
like, know what I mean? Like, that's it. Like, that's not like, now if she had said like, oh, he drugged me and like I was at the restaurant and I took a sip of water and all of a sudden the whole room started getting fuzzy and then he's like, you're not feeling well, come back to my place, and I woke up and I was naked. That's a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah.
But like, oh, so I ordered mussels and I ordered red wine and he told me that I should have white wine, and what an asshole. It's like, you're eating seafood, bitch. You should be drinking white. Like,
yeah, it really did sound more like a bad date.
It was like,
and there was things like within it that like I'm like, what guy hasn't been like, hey, I want to stay for one more drink.
Right. That's.
Yeah, and that's why I have a big problem with everyone calling "Baby It's Cold Outside" like the rape song. I'm like, it's not a great representation of how you should be talking to women or like treating women, like when they say no.
It's
but
rapey, but it's
rapey. But at the same point, like I have been that guy that's been like, why don't you stay? It's literally snowing outside. Hang out. Like,
right.
So I think that like, the idea of,
I think the thing that gets me though, it's like, oh, what's in this drink? Baby, it's cold outside. That's the line that gets me.
Yeah, okay.
So like if that line
would that have gotten you before the Bill Cosby thing? Where like that was such
I think I always kind of thought the song always made me uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, it's a weird song, and I don't know why it's a Christmas song.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, like the baby Jesus, we're celebrating. Come over and take this rod. Like, it's just like, it's like that. But
so
that particular line, I was always just kind of like, because she's like, what's in this drink, baby? It's cold outside. It's like, wait, what is in this drink?
That's
like
fair.
Literally, like if that line wasn't in it, I probably wouldn't be so like. And
I'm also scared anytime you start censoring music. I'm just selfishly nervous that they're gonna get to Salt and Pepper's like What a Man or Shoop, where like they literally make fun of Down syndrome people in the song, and like it's not good.
Wait, do they?
They literally go, I'm gonna something so hard, I'm gonna have you sounding like a R word.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, and then they make the sound like a sound.
Yeah.
It's so offensive, but I'm just like,
okay.
It's my favorite song. So if we
it's like, don't take this away from me.
Yeah, I'm like, listen, I try to be, as PC as possible, but I'm like, don't make me stop having to sing Shoop. Come on. There's few things. Although I was listening to like 90s rap the other day, and Nelly's song, I think it's getting hot. I think it's getting hot in here. There's one verse that's like every other word is the N word. And it was probably the first time I heard it since the 90s. And I was like, oh, I was like driving my mom's car, like, oh my God. Oh, I can't sing any of this. And then it was like so much that I was like, oh my God, like, I don't think I realized it because like it was like Z100 and
they
at
probably
the time.
bleeped it out at
But
the
like,
time.
yeah, I'm listening to like streaming radio, and I was like, oh my, unnecessary. It was so much. But I'm like, at what point, do we? I'm like, if that's gonna be the song that, again, it's not even the most offensive. Are we gonna take that down? Like, what are they gonna come for next? Same thing with like words. It's not offensive, but they're gonna go for that, and then they're gonna go for something else. It's just what's coming next. It's
yeah. It's weird, but like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with this Me Too thing. I think it's necessary. Like, I'm not discounting the fact that it's necessary.
Oh god, yeah.
But
I wish I wish that like the strength that the movement is doing so much good on a non-political level, like on a like women empowerment level.
right.
It's amazing that we're like getting some people like kicked out of office and getting them fired from their jobs as they should be. But it's just so weird to have like this president and these political people in power.
And he's like the
like,
king Me Tooer.
It's so freaking like every time someone gets fired, I'm like, this person's a piece of shit, but he's less than the president, and like,
it's
and
that's
it's
so
like,
hard.
Yeah, it's like how do you where is that line? Like, how do you defend it? But again, like these people are probably only getting fired in the states that I think matter. Because there's like those kids from.
But like we're talking, like even not just like politicians, like everyday guys that are like working in an office situation. If they said something that was like a quarter as inflammatory, if it's just like, "Hey Janet, you look great in that skirt," like they could possibly get fired for that.
Yeah.
Like, and you know what I mean? And like Trump is like, I can grab him by the pussy. It's like, well, I just said Janet's skirt was nice and I got fired.
Yeah, I do think that, I think that that's kind of, it goes into the idea of, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
It goes into the idea of, what level are we going to start kind of caring? So it's like, I think it's one of those things that Republicans kind of put out there, like, oh, PC means that, like, you can't kiss a girl without asking, where it's like, no, it's like, read the room is really what we're saying. So it's kind of like, I don't think anyone's actually getting fired for just being like, oh, Janet, you have a nice skirt. I think that's what, we're hearing things, and being told that that's what's happening. Same thing, like, whenever, like, I fight with someone who says about gender identity, they'll be like, okay, well, like, I identify as this, and just because I say it's not, and I'm like, no one is in the gay community, in the trans community, is saying things like, did you just assume my gender? So cis people will say sometimes to mock me, did you just assume my gender? And I'm like, that is something that cis people made up and say that trans people say when they've never actually met a trans person.
Right.
So I think it goes into one of those, like, oh, I can get fired for this, when, like, I've worked in corporate America, like, I've definitely seen things that people should have been reprimanded for and fired for, and I've definitely seen, like, your normal flirting, and this is how people meet each other kind of thing.
Right.
And I also look in the movie P.S. I Love You. That did not age well with the Me Too movement. I don't know.
I haven't seen it in years.
I definitely recommend. I mean, I never enjoyed the movie once they started like romanticizing 9/11 in the first 15 minutes. I was like, this is weird. But like I tried to watch it the other day, just because people were like talking about it, and I was like, this did not age well. Like, essentially, the boss is like screwing one of his assistants. Like, I'm like, this would have been rioted.
But like that's like I feel like none of the 80s movies age well. Like if you just look at Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh my god, so rapey. Oh.
So rapey. Oh. And it's like when I was like young, like this was like one of my favorite like it was one of my favorite movies because I'm like, it's like, oh, like I'm a nerd, but like I wasn't like a guy, I was like a girl nerd, but it was just like, but it's so rapey.
Oh my god, that scene when he's in the Darth Vader outfit.
Right. He's like,
Oh my
like
god!
it's just like,
and like she's totally cool with it because he was like kind of good at it. And I'm like, I think she'd be a little bit more mad. Like,
yeah, I think that
you just fucked me in a Darth Vader costume.
yeah,
pretending to be
and
someone
I totally
else.
thought this was my boyfriend. Like
Yeah,
I
so
thought
weird.
that was like
I
what
did like
else?
that they made the random gay dude a nerd, and then like the pothead a nerd. I was like, they weren't really nerds. They were just like,
I have a bit about the gay dude Lamar.
I love him. He's so good when he's with the.
He's the best. But like I have a bit about how I love Obama not because he's our first black president, because he's a black nerd and he's like my perfect black nerd, because like before him it was Urkel. And Urkel's too nerdy. Like,
yeah.
He's too much
Too
nerd.
too much.
And then we had Lamar from Revenge of the Nerds, and he was gay. He wasn't really a nerd.
Yeah, he
like,
was gay. Yeah.
And it's so like, and I'm like, if Lisa Turtle and Urkel had a child, that would be me, which is like kind of Obama.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. It is kind of weird that like Michelle Obama seems so cool.
yeah.
Whereas, like, I feel like Barack just like says dad jokes like all day. And
Yeah.
she's just shaking her head like, what?
It's like, are you peaches from Jamaica? 'Cause Jamaica me crazy.
Yeah.
Like, like,
And her and the kids.
And there's like, Dad. Like, yeah.
Oh my God.
He looks like the king of dad jokes.
Yeah,
He really does.
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing. I mean, I only wore the mom jeans.
Oh, yeah.
I miss those scandals when life was normal.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like rape scandals. It was like, why is he wearing a tan suit?
It's just like, it's after Labor Day, but that's white, but he's black. It's white to him. Like,
Oh my God. I like that. That thought process. It's white comparatively. Okay.
I mean, that's Republican nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would think like, they'd be a little bit nicer to like, well, to like Mexicans because they're lighter skinned than like Africans. So I figured like, like historically, they'd be like, all right, well, you're not the worst.
That's the
Fucking
thing,
right.
though, is that
This
they don't
country,
speak
man.
the English.
The English.
That's why they don't like them. They don't speak the English. Now, if they spoke the English and they were light enough to assimilate into white culture,
There you go.
then
There
they'd
you
be
go.
fine with it. It's just like, you
I
can
don't understand how-
Taquero Taco Bell all you want in the house, but when you're outside,
Well, didn't Taco Bell won the best Mexican restaurant in the United States?
oh my God.
And that's Trump's America. Like, that wouldn't have happened in the Obama years.
No. It's like, I don't even know if like Taco Bell would have been considered food in Obama years.
Yeah.
And like I'm having so much like I like my vino, but I kind of made a deal with myself when Trump got elected that I would not drink any wines that were bottled in a Trump year. So my cutoff is 2016. I cannot drink any rosés.
Wait, but does he like make money off of this? Is this just
No,
like
it's because I
self-torture?
feel like no, it's not even a self-torture. My feeling is that we've had a mass idiocracy across the globe,
Yeah.
and that it's in the soil and the water of those years, and that if you drink it, you're going to turn stupid.
I'm not gonna lie. I think you might be onto something.
That's
I
just my
feel-
own conspiracy. I have a little problem even with 2016's because technically he was elected in 2016.
Yeah, it's like that's like people were drinking it because like that's when he was elected. Yeah.
So like I
That's the year
tried to
definitely
stay
for it, yeah.
away from a 2016. However, I'll say to myself, he was not inaugurated until 2017. So I'm
Okay.
100% won't drink a 2017.
Okay. All right.
But like, and I can't drink a 2018. But like, it's become so hard
I was gonna say it's gonna be expensive soon.
to find a fucking wine that is not a Trump year. It's just like fucking.
You're gonna have to like turn to whiskey at this point. It's gonna be cheaper. That's it.
I'm like, there's like one wine shop that I know that I can get like a 2015 Bordeaux and a 2014 Pinot Noir. And like literally that is all the wine I can drink because they're the only ones that are those years.
Have you thought about setting up a GoFundMe for this? Like just where you could buy it in like a
bulk
like
or something?
Bulk? Yeah. Like get,
no,
get
but
like
I
a
like
gross
what you're
amount.
picking up.
Yeah, like 144
I'm picking up what you're putting
bottles.
down. Yeah.
Yeah, get a gross effect. Yeah, I would support that GoFundMe. Definitely.
It's like I can't do it. If I'm like
you with an empty bottle,
right?
Like,
it's just like look. It's all 2017. I haven't had a rosé in months. You guys.
We do a documentary of me just following you around to
trying
the
to find.
store.
I'm telling you, like rosés, it's like all the rosés are 2017. I've gone to so many different. I'm drinking fucking cabs. I hate cabs. But if I see a cab and it's like a fucking 2015, I'll drink it.
I mean, you have to stick to your morals. I mean, this is
You know,
I mean, something had to happen. I just saw an article about a kid that was like covered in measles in like New Jersey, and I'm like, yeah, it seems about right. That seems about on par with everything that's going.
I would totally get my kid vaccinated while I'm drinking a 2015. Like
exactly. Yeah, it's crazy. Like I mean, every time I think like this is it. This is gonna be where like Trump gets.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. And I know like it's probably just like because that's what's on my Facebook. Like I'm sure like my Republican aunt is like her Facebook is like all like about amazing things that Trump is supposedly doing. So it's like
like building the wall that Mexico is supposed to pay for.
And that's the other thing, and that there was another thing. I was like, okay, once he said I didn't say Mexico would pay for it. I was like, okay, we all heard him. Like even the dumbest of the dumb knows that he's lying. They still don't.
But they'll be like, no, he didn't mean it. He was just joking because the Mexicans should pay for the wall because of all the damage the Mexicans have done raping our white women. Like,
I also think it's amazing, like, there's so many, so many blue collar Republicans, and my dad. It's so weird. And my dad's a Democrat, but he's a carpenter. And he was like, "Well, can't they just like so we?" Then he was like, "So they own the other side of the wall?" I'm like, "Yeah, technically." And he was like, "So like they could just like kind of like jump and like or like get a ladder?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I don't really understand this." And I was like, "They could also dig underneath and like."
They can like, especially now that we're doing steel beams, they can just get metal cutters and cut through like. They went and they did tests of all the different versions of walls that they're trying to build there. And the steel beam thing that he's trying to pass now, they cut through it in under 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's like we're spending $5.7 billion so that we can have people use metal cutters to cut through this wall.
Yeah, it's not
and their answer is that on the Mexican side, they don't have that kind of hardware. They won't be able to do. Have you heard of El Chapo? He made an underground fucking subway so he could get out of fucking jail.
I mean, I'm like the Underground Railroad. What, you missed that? Like that? What you think? Like people of color that were slaves were like hoarding money? Like what the like? You figure it out. Like they're gonna figure it out. Like
El Chapo had hundreds of miles of a subway underneath the ground that got underneath your wall. This is the stupidest thing. And the thing that upsets me the most, like we had just got over the government shutdown, and I really was having a lot of problems with it. And my problem is that a lot of people that work for the government voted for Trump. Yeah. A lot of these very same people were not being paid by Trump. And now we're supposed to start getting food together for soup kitchens and like all of this shit because they're not getting paid.
So ridiculous.
Because they voted to not get paid.
Yeah.
Like I feel 100% of the empathy and the sadness and the desperation for any person that works for the government that did not vote for Trump.
Yeah, of course.
But if you voted for Trump, bitch, you voted for this.
You voted for it.
Like, why should I be upset? Why should I email my representation in government?
Why are these people getting press? Like, this Republican, this Trump voter is now regretting it. So now he's getting paid to be put on a fucking news broadcast.
So like all of a sudden you're not brain dead anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, when I was voting for Trump, I thought he was only going to fuck over the Mexicans and the Chinese and the Muslims and the women and the gays and those trans people. But I never thought he was going to hurt us white men.
It's great. I love it when I hear people people of color who are like shocked at Mexicans who are like shocked that like their husbands were like shit back. And I'm like, how did you thought that they were like, and it's like, oh, I thought they were going to go for the bad Mexicans. And it's like, what? What?
You did not understand that when you're racist, we're all bad? We're all bad.
How did you miss that? Like, I thought that was common knowledge. Like,
it's just like, well, my husband is Mexican, but he's not a bad one. He's not a rapist.
Yeah.
I had my baby willingly. Like,
yeah,
it's just like... Because abortion is against God.
Oh my God, I can't.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. We should take a quick break. But before we come back, do you want to just tell the folks where they can follow you on social media?
Yeah, right now, best place is to go to @GuysAtPartiesLikeIt. That's @GuysAtPartiesLikeIt on all social media.
All right. This has been Blame Storming, and we will talk to you next week. Bye.